Have you heard the saying, if I'm too much, go find less? Well, the Netflix series Too Much certainly tests those boundaries with its lead character. Is this a show that you're gonna need to binge? Jessica is a mid-30s New York workaholic reeling from a broken relationship that she thought would last forever. When every block in New York tells a story of her own bad behavior, the only solution is to take a job in London, where she plans to live a life of solitude. But when she meets Felix, a walking series of red flags, she finds that their unusual connection is impossible to ignore, even as it creates more problems than it solves. Lena Dunham is the co-creator and showrunner for this 10-episode series, returning to creating after a hiatus and now with a production deal with Netflix. The stars Megan Stalter and Will Sharp, and then is supported by Emily Ratajkowski, Rita Wilson, Rhea Perlman, and Richard E. Grant. Then the show also throws in a bunch of cameo appearances from actors like Andrew Scott, Naomi Watts, Kit Harington, Jessica Alba, Stephen Fry, Rita Ora, and Jennifer Saunders. This is a strange mix of uncomfortable romance, comedy, and satire. The main reason it's uncomfortable is thanks to the overbearing performance from Stalter. I'm all for having characters that could be annoying or grating, heck, even completely distasteful. But if I'm meant to root for them, they need to demonstrate some progress towards growth. Stalter's Jessica is so difficult to connect with, at least for me, because she is whiny, melodramatic to the 10th degree, self-obsessed, and awkward, but not in a charming way. For the first few episodes, I was really just hoping that she'd get a railroad spike through the face so it would end the absolute misery that she was creating for me. And that's where I have to give massive kudos to Stalter. She begins with somebody abhorrently off-putting and then begins to exhibit positive growth. Does she all of a sudden become perfect? No, that would just be dumb and unbelievable. But we see a softness and a self-awareness come over her that work to change my view of the character. Now, I do wish this transition had come a bit earlier in the season, because the realizations and then the improvement, they don't really begin to click until the show is almost complete. But to offset Jessica's aggravating persona, Will Sharp's Felix is kind of the exact opposite. He's laid back, easygoing, and loving. He's kind of aimless and wandering, so he also has his own growth journey to take. And seriously, for the first 3-ish episodes, if Felix wouldn't have been part of the story, I would have just tapped out. This needs somebody who softens the very rough edges of Jessica, and Sharp creates just that character. And I appreciate also that the characters are dynamic. They may appear one-dimensional and surface level at the outset, but as the story moves along, we got further insight into their backgrounds, which fully flesh out why each behave and react as they do. This element also works to make Jessica and Felix way more endearing. We get the understanding of what created the opportunities for their flaws and shortcomings. And once they have those realizations, we get to watch them navigate how to approach change. Now, for the satire portion of the story, I'm not sure it's obvious right from the start. But as the show goes along, the supporting cast, and even cameos, they work to place a mirror up to Jessica and Felix. We get to see them in the context of work colleagues, friends, and family, most of whom are vapid. I couldn't tell with some of them if they were just overly self-absorbed or simply maladjusted. Either way, they create the contrast that's needed to watch the eventual growth in our leads. And these side characters, they're so over the top that it's difficult not to see the story poking fun at their use of bravado to hide their insecurities. And the actors serve up the characters to be such richly unpleasant beings that they end up making any others with emotional dysfunction come across as balanced and stable. Not all of the comedy works within this, and it's not that I expected every moment to land perfectly, but there were times that I chuckled out loud or smirked just thanks to ridiculous situations. I also rolled my eyes a lot because so many of the cringy areas and awkward moments came about as the result of poor decisions, and then just didn't become very humorous. It was like, well, you're dumb, you did dumb things, so you should get the dumb consequences. In these scenarios, I would have preferred as the storytelling avoid the attempt at a laugh and just use the situation for a character lesson. In each of the episodes, it's somewhere between 30 and 40-ish minutes. That first episode, it felt like it was way over an hour. I think a lot of that had to do just with my annoyance and disinterest in Jessica, but other episodes also felt as though they progressed past the appropriate length and then dragged everything out. Now, some of that comes from extended scenes that I think are meant to become absurdist, but they don't achieve that. So instead of crafting anything witty or clever, we just get added time with stupid. An odd thing within the storytelling is that Jessica has this idealistic view of London and relationships, picturing the perfect coupling to be something out of a Jane Austen or Charlotte Bronte novel. Now, we do get some brief scenes that show how Jessica imagines herself within these worlds, but it's used so infrequently that it feels like an afterthought that's inserted awkwardly just in some random spots. Now, this doesn't collapse the story in any way. It's just that with such focus on this theme, especially through the visuals at the start of the show, it gets neglected the further we move along within the narrative. I can appreciate, though, how Jessica's story works to mimic Jane Eyre's as she slowly discovers herself, establishes some independence, and then finds love. So while too much does require some patience to fully connect with the characters, once you do, you're rewarded with rich personas full of chaotic baggage and a character progression that is legitimate and believable. Megan Stalter and Will Sharp create such a dynamic, it's difficult not to be sucked into their vortex, regardless of how tumultuous it can get. The pacing is slow and uneven, and a lot of the growth comes too late in the story, but this still creates a modern and somewhat relatable love story that doesn't shy away from the strangeness and gracelessness that can accompany relationships, whether they be romantic or platonic. The show lets us know that there can be too much of a good thing, but here we get the right amount of vulnerability, cringe, and heart. So don't find less, give this one a go. There is an abundance of sex, a tiny bit of nudity, a ton of profanity, and just a little bit of violence. I give too much 4 out of 5 couches. So what's a go-to rom-com for you? Currently, I am consistently rewatching Anyone But You, but let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.